Welcome to the Lighthouse. I'm your host, Ryan Hopenhauser, and this is the show for business leaders to unlock their full potential. Together, we're going to explore the tools, strategies, and insights that you can use to navigate the complexities of the entrepreneurial mind, maintain your mental wellness, and elevate your leadership to take your business and your life to the next level. Each episode, we're going to bring you powerful conversations with various leaders across multiple industries who have the mindsets, strategies, and tools that they've used to transform their own journey. So whether you're here to lead your team better, grow your business, or take your life in a completely new direction, this is the show for you. Let's illuminate your path forward. Welcome to the Lighthouse, the show that's going to shine a guiding light on the mental side of entrepreneurship and ambitious leaders like you. Like if you're an ambitious leader, this is what the show is for. Our mission is to equip you with the insights, the tools, and the strategies that you need to become the best leader for not just yourself, but your family, your team members, and also your community. We believe that leadership is the foundation of personal and professional growth. And if that is the foundation, then your mental health is going to be the soil that leadership grows in. So every episode of the Lighthouse, you can expect to have your soil nurtured. You can expect to get some insights that are going to help you break through those mental barriers and unlock your true potential, both in business and your personal life. This is where you're going to gain the clarity, confidence, become the greatest version of yourself. And I am excited to have our guest today, Dr. Aaron LeBauer, Doctor of Physical Therapy. He's got his physical therapy practice in Greensboro, North Carolina. He has also coached to thousands of different health business entrepreneurs and helping them start their cash-based physical therapy practices or even take their healthcare practices online with all the systems that he teaches. He has been an entrepreneur for multiple decades and worked in various aspects in terms of massage therapy, physical therapy, business coaching, tons of insights on the mental and physical blocks for people as they develop over time. And I'm excited to have him here on the show today to share what he's learned over the course of his entrepreneurial journey in becoming a better leader for himself, his team, and his family. Welcome to the show, Aaron.
Hey, Ryan, thank you so much for having me. Man, it's great to be here. And I'm really ever grateful for being introduced to you by, our good friend and Coach Bedros. And I happen to be wearing one of Bedros' shirts today. Just kind of rolled that way. Yeah. Nice.
I got this Man Up shirt on. And
it's so shout out to Bedros.
Yeah, shout out to Bedros, one of my good friends who's speaking this weekend on a big mastermind event. I shot him a video yesterday congratulating him and saying how awesome it is because we've been friends for almost a decade at this point, and it all started with a mastermind. It's like, two people from different parts of the world meet each other and connect, and it's really, really cool to be able to see what happens.
Yep.
So one of the things that I think is so interesting just about your journey is all of the different experiences that you've had. Everything from the bike racing into massage therapy, into physical therapy, into cash-based PT. And the first thing that I wanted to have you do for our listeners is just kind of share your background, your journey, and really what got you into business for yourself and got you started on this entrepreneur journey.
I'm going to give you the compressed version. And some highlights, and we can go into some of the lessons later. But I think growing up, my father, uncle, grandfather, and his brother were all physicians. And so it was kind of like, well, of course you're going to go to medical school. None of my older cousins did, but I got to undergrad, and my first day of organic chemistry, it was going to take me 4 hours to do review homework from the prior semester. And I was just like, no way. I mean, I sat there for 4 hours, like, there's no way I can do this. And I dropped out of the class the next day. I could do that homework, but I was like, if it's this hard doing review, what I got an A in, I don't want to spend my life like that. So I graduated not really knowing what I was going to do. I had been through to the career counselor twice, and each one sent me to someone else. And I just didn't go to the third appointment for the third different person. Okay. My mom said, you should be a teacher. And I was like, I don't really want to teach. She said, but I showed up to one of these info sessions for people interested in teaching in private schools where you didn't need a teaching certificate. And I show up and the lady goes, who are you and why are you here? And I'm like, my name's Aaron and I'm here for the info session. She said, well, the first session was last week. This is the second one. You can't be here. And I was like, well, and then I had another friend. I was walking down the quad and his buddy Lex goes, Aaron, have you taken your resume to the resume drop? And I'm like, what the fuck's the resume drop? I don't know what this is. So I graduated college and I just moved to California because I wanted to be there. And I had a bunch of different jobs. I never had a real job. And one day, I was working as a temp. I worked in bars, restaurants, and ended up working as a bike messenger. I loved it. But I had this epiphany one day that I could race bikes because living there was expensive. I couldn't race and I couldn't afford to work a normal job and race bikes. I didn't have the time to train or the money. I had this epiphany. I was like, I can go to massage therapy school, see 4 people in a day, have the time to train and the money to race on the weekends. And I did that. And I loved it. And massage therapy led to physical therapy. And then when I was in physical therapy school, so after about 8 years of massage therapy, I'm in PT school. And I saw 43 patients one day on my first clinical rotation as a student. And patients were already coming to me as a massage therapist and telling me that, they're doing things in PT that they can do on their own. No one had ever touched them where they hurt until they had met me. And I knew that me spending 45 minutes, even really an hour and a half with patients as a massage therapist was helping them in ways that they weren't being served in the medical community or by physical therapists. And so when I saw 43 patients that day, I realized I can't treat patients the way that I know they need to be treated in this model. And so I started my own physical therapy practice, and I did it without contracting with insurance companies. And
awesome, dude.
That's how I ended up in business. I mean, really, as a massage, to go back to the question is, in massage therapy school, we were basically taught to open your own business, and you can work in a spa or for someone else, but the best bet is to see your own private clients. Yeah. And I did that from day one, but I had my own private clients, and I worked in like spas and like a yoga center that hired massage therapists. I did that kind of part-time because I wasn't full-time marketing, and I didn't have, I wanted some of the ease that came with someone else filling my schedule.
Yeah. And just listening to the different steps that you took, it makes me think of something I heard recently. I forgot who said this, but they said entrepreneurship is really just high-level problem solving. Like at its core, and just your thought process going through that's all you were doing was just solving these problems.
Yeah. Like solving my problem.
As I see that I want to be able to do this, and there's a different way to do it that other people aren't doing. And I think that's one of the unique things about entrepreneurs is like we see things differently, which ultimately makes our experience different as we go through this transformation and journey over time, which is kind of where I wanted to take this. And like with all the different aspects of business that you've been operating in, like you said, you didn't have like a real job. You were working in these different capacities, which ultimately led you to entrepreneurship for yourself. How has the way that you've led yourself had to lead others? Like, how has that evolved over time through that process?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that's evolved over time is my awareness of it. Right. So if you're aware, then you can put words to it and pictures or grunts and gestures to help other people see the same thing. And also it's the awareness that not everyone sees the world the way I do.
Yep.
And I think part of that is looking back and going, why do I have to do it this way? I see a better way to do it. No one else can see the better way, or not many people. I think entrepreneurs see, like, we can see around corners where other people just see a wall in front of them. And I'm like, well, I can see around the corner. Why can't we just take the shortcut? And I think it's early on, I didn't notice that, or I didn't realize that. But now I can see that. And so sometimes it's my job to show people the wall, and tell them all about the wall. When I'm like, God, it's so frustrating talking about that wall because all we got to do is take one step to the right and we're beyond that problem. But part of the leadership is to say, hey, my employees or team members or clients don't always see around corners like I do. So I have to show them kind of like the step-by-step process of hit the wall and then take a step to the right. And then take another step to the right. And then you'll see, and they may not even see it. I just have to then say, just trust me. Let me take you back here. Because to them, I think the lights might be turned off in the room, but I can see in the dark.
Yeah, that's so great that you said that. I was just doing a coaching call yesterday, and it talked about like, I can see color, but you can only see black and white. I can't explain to you how to see color, or I can't even tell you what it looks like that you don't understand, but I can show you these different things to stepstone you along the way to get to that spot.
Right.
Where now like you can feel what this difference is. And then again, it opens the door to that next step for them. So I love that. Like the lights are off, but you got night vision goggles, you can see.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I think some people get into business ownership because they've solved problems, and others are kind of trying to get away from problems. And so sometimes when you're just trying to get away from a problem, maybe you can't see in the dark, but you want to. And then when you do, you're like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like what I'm seeing, and they're like, I can't handle it.
We saw the same thing in owning a gym and just being a trainer. Like we have so many people clientele wise that over the years, they see what we do, they've experienced a transformation, and they say, I want to try to do this. And then they come it's like they go behind the curtain. and they see what's behind the curtain and they're like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like, that's way different than I thought. It's not just about me and working out and nutrition. Like, you sacrifice a lot for others and you're doing all this stuff and that stuff. And like, wow, like I didn't realize that's what it takes. And like they see it, then all of a sudden they're like, nah, I'm good. Like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
No, I know. And, and one thing you talked about, and I'm so glad you said it, was awareness and like self-awareness. And that's kind of where I wanted to take this. And really the point of like the Lighthouse is like part of that awareness, I think, is understanding yourself here. So in just specifically with leading yourself, I guess, over the course of your entrepreneur career, like what's been your experience, or have you had any difficulty with the mental side of that and the stress or the overwhelm? And if so, like when did that come about? What did it look like for you and how'd you deal with it?
Yeah, I think there's a couple like there's like three big times where I've had that issues, and they were three different ones. So number one was early on when it was more of like imposter syndrome. Like what do I have that's so special that everyone thinks is so great? Like I'm not that special. I'm like, this isn't that hard. Like, why do I deserve this? Or why am I now have this? It was more of a level of responsibility that I now have to other people. You know, I think that was interesting. I mean, I even had that when I was starting my cash practice, where I would think, well, am I really helping these people? You know, and my wife at the time was like, well, they wouldn't keep coming back to you if you weren't helping them. I was like, oh, okay. You know, because it just like they come in and they're, you know, hurting and they look angry and they look upset. And like, she's like, you know, but it's true. Like they wouldn't keep coming back to me if I wasn't helping. So there was that. It was also that same kind of thing as I stepped into business coaching. And then like, so it was like, all right, I have to get over that and just trust. You know, it's like, really, I just had to trust that what I have is good enough. What I try to tell my clients, remember, was it Edward Abagnale? He was the Catch Me If You Can with Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah. You're right. He's like, how did he teach a physics class at Harvard or MIT? I was like, well, he's like, I just had to be one chapter ahead of the students. Yep. You just have to be one chapter ahead. So I started realizing that I don't have to be who I think is the perfect person or the perfect entrepreneur. I just have to be one step of everyone that I'm helping. So there was that stage. And then it was COVID. Yeah. You know, COVID was a big one. And it was like, all right, for me, how I dealt with it was I've got to double down. You know, I got to go all in on my clients, all in on both my business, actually triple down and just like barrel through it. And, you know, I didn't know what was going on around the world around me. I was just like, I'm going to go to work. I show up, I get up at 6 a.m., work out. I'm from work from like 7:30 to 7, you know, and just kind of say, hey, I got to grind it out. And then it was like, just kept being a grind. I was like, well, I got to do something different. But it was that was more of a compartmentalization. Just like racing bikes, you can't think about the fall or the cliff. You just have to look straight ahead. And that's, for me, that's what that was. But it was, you know, incredibly stressful. I think I had a stomach ulcer one night. It was just bad. And then there was as I started coming out of that, 2022, my wife asked for a divorce. And it was just like, I was like, how the fuck am I going to get through this? You know, and then there's a fourth thing. It's like I had the life ambush. And then last year, about a year and a half after that, had another like business partnership fall through, business ambush. And it's just like, what do I do? Like, what's my other option? It's just keep taking a step forward. And so a couple ways I dealt with, I think the strategies to dealing with it are, one, looking forward and not backwards, looking forward, not sideways, talking to people. I have a therapist. I have a group of good friends. I mean, you're one of the people that I would call and just like, Ryan, I just have to just dump this off my chest to someone else who understands, you know, or get some help. And then I've got, you know, a handful of other people at different times you could talk to, especially other guys. Like you have to be able to talk to other men about the problems, and we don't like talking about our problems. It's easier to solve someone else's, but you have to do that. So those were kind of those 3 or 4 big like areas where but the leadership piece is me not stopping and just keep going. And how do I lead myself is just by looking at one step ahead and say, I just got to walk over there. Just kind of do that one next step.
Yeah. And, you know, I love you talked about like one, the awareness piece and the focus, like you can change where you're focusing. And I think that's one thing that is very difficult in times of stress, is that you think that the problem is the only thing that's there. And if you can just shift yourself over, you see that there's there's a door to go through. Right. You know, like there's a door that is stopping you, but you can open it. Yep. So I love that you said that. And then the other piece is just about like connecting with others. I remember the very first time I joined a mastermind back in 2015. And I got to go and sit in a room with other people, especially specifically guys. And I'll never forget coming home and telling my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, like, there's other people like me. Like, that was the first time that I felt understood, I guess.
Yeah.
So, and that's really the kind of the basis for this show, is like to give the guys a place to go and listen to these things and learn about these things, because it can be difficult to find an outlet, to find a place to learn, to find a place to talk. So I'm really glad that you talked about the power of that, because it has been for me personally, it's been a game changer. And you're right. Like, when things hit the fan, I call you and you call me and we talk about it. And it feels a hell of a lot better once you figure it out with someone else there.
Yeah. I do want to bring up something that was like this, because you were talking about like the awareness of this. I was like, who said this quote? I was like, I had to Google it while we were talking. I was like, one of my mentors, John Barnes. He's taught me myofascial release therapy from when I was a PT. And he says, without awareness, there is no choice. He's like, John's been saying this for 25 years, well before the Matrix came out. It's like, if you aren't aware of your surroundings and your options, or of the different systems of the body. And what he's talking about specifically is how the medical systems just kind of ignored fascia and other systems of the body versus just the joints and muscles. It's like, if you're not aware of your body, your surrounding, you don't really have a choice. So we just see this one option. We're like, yeah, there's no other options. We're just going to go for it. But now that I'm aware of how I'm different than others, how other people operate and thrive, what I need to be able to give, where I have not lack, a different communication style. I know I need to communicate to my team separately or a different way. I can't expect them to read my mind. Now that allows me the choice to hire, fire, grow, make different decisions, because I know I'm more aware of the options. I don't know all of them. I'm still in the jar, but it's just that without awareness, there's no choice. I was like, oh, that's a big part of it. And if we can be aware of our state as well as the people's states around us, then we're able to lead them and guide them and lead ourselves through those like crisis situations better.
Dude, that was perfect. You said it better than I could. And I know exactly what you're talking about with that quote. I think it was from Wake Up Warrior, which I know you did some stuff with them.
Yep.
Awareness precedes clarity. Clarity precedes action. Action precedes change.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, if you're not aware, you can never be clear on what's going on. And if you're not clear on what's going on, you can never take an action to change it, and nothing will ever change. And like, that's same thing. It's always stuck with me, which is like, again, if you can become aware of this and how you operate, you then have the ability to change it. And you can, I would call it, reprogram it. And that's one of the things that I think over the entrepreneurial journey, you need to be able to do in order to ascend, because otherwise you get stuck in these lower states, and then you don't realize that you're there, and you're making the same repeated behaviors over and over and over. And it becomes a pattern. Like, Tony Robbins talks about, everyone's got patterns. It's great to have patterns, but you need to identify the negative ones. Because if you don't remove negative patterns, you're going to be stuck in that way constantly, just spinning your wheels and spinning your wheels.
Right. Well, that's the number one reason you got to have someone else, who you trust or know or understand. You say, hey, Ryan, like, am I like, slap me if I'm saying the same thing over and over again. If I'm not changing it, you can complain or we can talk about it, but if it's always the same thing, like, I might not see it, but I have to be aware of that. But I also have to have people who say, hey, you know what, you keep saying or doing the same thing and it seems to not be working. We got to try something different, People don't like to hear that though.
No, they don't. And that's like, I guess one of the things I've always struggled with since I was a kid, of like the truth teller. It was like, I provide you with the truth, but unfortunately not everyone wants to hear it.
Right.
And it's kind of like you said, like with that vision, like, to me, it's so clear, like it's crystal clear, but they don't always see it. And it hurts if you don't see it when it just gets smacked in your face. So yeah, it definitely the right person to be able to show you that. But speaking of those patterns, like, do you know, or can you think back, what are some subconscious patterns or some things that you had in yourself that you've had to evolve through or out of over the years?
Subconscious patterns, I think.
Or just the way you handle team people or conflict. Is there anything that you've had to change in yourself and the way that you operate as a leader to get you to this level? Being
like a people pleaser, wanting everyone to be happy. Yeah. Because if you want everyone to be happy, no one's going to be happy.
It's unfortunate, but true.
It's like, it showed up more in my my personal relationship and marriage, but as I've kind of unpacked that, I see how it shows up in like leadership and coaching. Because if I want a client to be happy, they're not always going to get the answer that they need. There was someone who was asking me on a call. I mean, that was the beginning of the summer, and I started realizing that, like, so the pattern is what I'm going to do is he asked about Facebook ads. I'm going to help him try to answer his Facebook ads question rather than question why is he trying to run Facebook ads when he, is under a certain level of revenue per month. He doesn't have a offer that converts organically, and he's busy. And why is he trying to run Facebook ads if your schedule's full? But I'm trying to answer the question he asks with a group of 20 something people on the call. And I don't have time to like unpack it all, but I'm seeing it. And so I had someone recently at the end of the summer asking something similar. And I was like, if I were you, I'm not running Facebook ads, because you don't have X, Y, and Z. And what we really need to be talking about is how are we going to get clients off of your list, doing things you don't want to do, and like, and then I felt bad, so whatever it was, I felt bad. I was like, I felt like I bit her head off, and she didn't even see it that way.
Yeah. And that's again, it's so difficult to open that window and show them. And even like one of the ways I like to do it is ask is like, why did you do that? And I don't like a why question, but like, what were you thinking when you decided to make this move? And it's ironic because a lot of times they weren't.
Right.
So the answer is I wasn't, or I don't know, or I thought that I should do that, but they don't actually have a concrete reasoning behind why they're actually doing it.
Yeah, the specific thing about Facebook ads is they're sexy and they think it's like something else is going to solve my problem when you don't have like a offer. They don't even know who their client avatar is. And, but it's like my need to, keep a client and make them feel happy and not mad at me. It was like, well, they didn't hire me to say yes and be a cheerleader. They hired me to give them insights and help them make decisions. That was a big one. It's like, if my default is to say basically, whatever makes you happy, then I'm not actually leading. It's like, hey, we need to do this. And they can say yes or no, but trying to, base the happiness on how they feel, but that's not my responsibility. And that's a big lesson that I've had to unpack over the last few years. And it's in all areas of life.
Yeah. And again, that's why I'm a big believer in that. There are no business problems. There's just you problems that manifest in your business.
Right.
And again, if you identify you can fix the business pretty quickly because it just goes away. And you don't need Facebook ads, or you don't need a new CRM, or you don't need a new graphic design for whatever logo or whatever you're going to do. Like, it's just you.
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing is like, it's like feeling like it's hard to turn people away. I can help everyone, but they have to want to help themselves. It's really hard to turn people away, and say, hey, I can help you, but they sometimes can't help themselves. And what I have to, the frame is I have to understand, does this prospective client, are they able to help themselves? But I would have to turn them away, not because I can't help them, but because they don't have the capacity or desire to really do the work that's necessary.
Yeah. There's got to be a willingness to look. If you're not willing to look in those areas, then you're never going to see the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm glad you talked about the changes that have occurred. And one of the things that I think ingrains us into these, let's just say, negative patterns is like, we've learned at some point, like a storyline, there's a reason why we're doing it. Like, and I know like for me, one of the things I always struggle with was like, it can only get done if I do it myself, because that was something like I learned, so looking back, what were some, I want to say, like myths or maybe false things that you learned about leadership that you originally thought, and then over the course of your journey have learned that wasn't the true statement or wasn't the right belief, and you had to shift away from that?
Right. I think there's a couple. One, I think the earliest one I realized was that leadership's not telling people what to do. It's empowering them to make better decisions. It's also, and it's not just being willing to clean the toilet bowl yourself. It's like it's more about, giving people, like, I don't want a micromanager, and I don't want to be a micromanager, and giving employees responsibility, or giving people in my life responsibilities. Like, come with me. I even tell my kids, just come. If you got a problem, come with me to 2 different options. I'm not trying to solve your problems all the day. I need them to also solve their problems. Another one was more about thinking that when I hire someone, or I bring someone on my team, I can put them in, and then I don't need to focus on them. Now they've got a good spot. They can take care of themselves, because I could do that. And then I can go on to the next person. And then it hurts me when they're gone. I'm like, well, what the fuck? You're good in that spot. I just need to focus somewhere else, because you could put me in a job and I'm going to tell me the boundaries and the goals, and I'm just going to make it happen. But no one wants to hire me because they want me to do what they say. And I don't want my employees to do what I say. I want my employees to, be somewhat creative and responsible. They need more of the guidelines, but they're also looking for continual touch points. And, I'm like, and so I realized, okay, I can't just have this expectation that once I hire someone, they're never leaving. They do leave, and for many good reasons.
Yeah. And again, like you said, like, you can't just tell them what to do. Like, I used to do the same thing, and like, why are you doing that? Well, like, it's because they actually didn't know how to do the thing I told them what to do.
Right.
or they didn't know that you can do this shortcut that I knew, or, whatever it is. So, it's definitely been a big learning moment, I think, for everyone on that journey.
Right. And I'm still learning how do I communicate in the way the person sitting in front of me will receive it, and it's very different. Every employee's different. And I have one right now. He just needs to repeat everything out loud. I'm like, okay. I'm like, cool. And he's a great dude. And it's just like, he's got to do that. Whereas other people, I needed to, like, spell it out and show them, but Chris doesn't come to me with problems. I'm like, where are all the problems? Like, he solves the problems. He just has to, like, he just communicates in a little bit different way or absorbs, learns stuff in a different way. But I don't have any problem. I'm like, dude, ain't good. He's like, yeah, we're all good. I'm like, problems are handled. It's awesome.
And I think, again, I maybe giving you your golden nugget there is like, you became aware of other people. It's like the awareness in yourself. You now understand others. And again, like, I think that's part of that journey is like, if you don't understand this, it's impossible to understand that on the other side of the screen.
Right.
Or it's impossible to understand your team member and why they're behaving the way they are when you don't even know why you're behaving the way you are.
Right. If I have no awareness of myself, I can't compare me to someone else. I think everyone else operates. So that was the thing, is I just assumed everyone else operated like me. Otherwise they were dumb. I was like, what the fuck is this person? Like, why would they, walk through I had a temp job where the lady walked through the whole alphabet with me. And I was just like, really? Like, I've graduated college. You got to walk through the alphabet? I mean, I don't know. Like, that just gave me a really sad look at like where most other people operate in life. It's just like really low. Working as a temp was really eye-opening for me in business. One of my first days on a job, my first temp assignments, I showed up and she said, here's this pile of mail. I want you to open it. I'm like, okay. And she goes, and here's an electric mail opener. And I was like, all right, cool. So I looked at the space. I lined up the mail opener here. I had a little empty bin here, and I took everything and lined it up and put it in thing. I was like, and after an hour and a half, I was like, okay, what's next? I'm done. And she goes, you're done? And I was like, yeah. She's like, oh, I thought that was going to take you at least a day, maybe a day and a half. I was like, well, what else do you want me to do? She's like, you can go home. I was like, I got paid for an hour and a half and I didn't even get the money for the full day. I was just like, oh, finish the work and like walk around looking busy.
I had that same experience in college. I worked construction for my landlord, and I remember getting scolded for working too fast by the other workers, like the general contractor that was there, or like the foreman that was on site. Like, because I would, like, by me doing things too fast, it made them look bad. And they didn't want that. And also it meant the day would be shorter, or that they would have to do the next project. So like, that was one, like, I think of like these bad things we learned. That was one of the things that I was like, and I was thankful that I didn't adopt it. But like, but yeah, like some of the ways they're thinking are so great, like, not say crazy, but different. They're just so different and unusual that that's how some operate, and that's what they look for, which is why they're at a certain level. Right. In order to raise above that, you got to shed those, because otherwise you get stuck.
Yeah. Or you go around feeling like I'm the crazy one. I'm like, why? I'm not the crazy one.
Yeah,
but it's
story of my life.
Yeah, I know. It's like, why am I I'm like, no one else sees this? So I finally learned I had another job where I just get all the work done, and I just like go to other parts of the empty floor and sit there. One job I was fax boy, and I'd spent 80% of the time writing letters and raising money. I raised $25,000 for my bicycle team while I was fax boy for 2 months. Yep. And then they offered me a job, and I was like, the supervisor was, I'm like, hey, Aaron, we want to take you out to lunch. We've got an opportunity we talked about. And I'm like, oh no, they're going to offer me one of these trading jobs. And I don't really want to do a trading job, cause it was in San Francisco. Right. And we go to lunch and they're trying to offer me, they're like, well, Ron, the male guy who's been here for 40 years is retiring and we want you to take his place. And I'm just like, and I said to him, I was like, I have a college degree, right? I was like, and I went to Duke University, which I don't ever rarely say, hey, I went somewhere special by saying I went to Duke. But I was like, I did go to Duke. And they're like, we think you'd be great. And I'm like, what planet are you living on that you think that is my goal is to be mail boy? And I told him, I said, I thought you were going to offer me one of these trading jobs. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to tell you no. I was like, you guys are got to be kidding me. But it was just like this view of it's this like low expectation that we or people can get like bound into. And I'm like, am I the crazy one here? No, I was just in the wrong place.
Yeah.
I was in the wrong.
So in thinking of that too, and like, I feel like you've had these moments and you've always had these insights mentally that's guided you along this journey. And like the whole concept of the lighthouse is that a lighthouse is always standing tall. It is not jumping in the water to save a boat. It is always up there, shining its light, guiding you where to go. It's in the storm. Like it's always there for you. So if you think back over your career and your journey, has there been something, whether it's a person or whether it's a habit or a thing that you've always been able to lean on to help you get through some of those difficult times and also maybe to ascend you, like to show you that, hey, there's another opportunity, there's another level?
The only person I can lean on is myself. Right. Mm-hmm. And I was just thinking about the lighthouse, like a lighthouse can take a beating and it's still standing. And sometimes it's hard to keep the light on, but that's the job. And I think that there have been people in my life who have come in and out. I mean, my dad probably would be someone who's always been there, but that relationship's only like developed in the more like the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. But I would have to say it's like, but he wasn't always available for me to lean on either, And so I'd say it's probably got to be myself. And I think, but seeing other examples of people, like I know, like Bedros was a great example because I was on a coaching call with him in 2020 and I was telling him about all my problems. He's like, here's what we're, I was like, that puts it in perspective. But it was like, but what was helpful for him and what was helpful for me is like, I can get out of thinking about that by coaching my clients and he's doing the same thing. And it's how do we lead our clients? But you have to be able to, I think, really bet on yourself. I think I've made a couple bets over the last years and I was betting on other people and betting on other people didn't get me the result that I expected, because I was trying to, I wouldn't say take an easy way out, but take an easier path, than, hey, look, let me just put some money here, put some effort here because you can take care of this problem that I have, which is not servicing clients or wanting to make more money in some investment or having you step in and do this role. But it's not that I should do all of the roles, but I have to bet on myself and my own intuition. And sometimes that gets, it's hard to see, but if I keep going back to me, then I'm still here, and no one, and very few people are going to go through that, the stuff that you and I have both gone through the last years. They're going to say like, no, I can't handle that, but you keep doing it.
Yeah. And honestly, I didn't know what you were going to say to that question, but I'm so glad that was your answer because it's so true. And again, and that's the whole point of like the show is that like, it has to start with you.
Right.
And you have to be there for yourself in multiple ways. And that was something I never knew myself. And I've had to learn over these last 2 years and going through this mental journey I've been on. Well, really it started 2010 and it just kind of took off in the last 2 years. But yeah, like you do have to be there. And another great shout out to B, like he taught me in 2020 so much about that. Like, and that was always one thing I appreciated. Again, like in terms of conversation, it was like the transparency, like for him to open up and share what was going on with him while I'm going through it and then help me understand how he navigated it was so powerful.
Right. I went through, like in my massage business was around from 99 and in 2000, 2001, there was a big like .com crash in San Francisco. It didn't really affect much. It affected the country, but it was like all of a sudden my business like dropped like 30%. A bunch of people left and everyone, all of a sudden $80 was too expensive, but I figured 75 and 75 wasn't. And then I started my PT business at the bottom of the recession. But I didn't have the business before the recession to have it dip. I I didn't have that, but it was really hard. And I also, both those times I didn't have someone else showing, like being an example of here's how you get through it. I mean, I just kind of waded my way through it and figured it out. But it was so much easier to navigate the changes, the pivots, and the other pieces through COVID. It was easier to navigate. It was a harder process because it was longer and affected people in a deeper way. But to be able to have that was super valuable. And I think there's been a couple times, there was even thinking back when I hired my first employee, I was able to see in someone else who had a business like mine, which 10 years ago wasn't very common. He's actually from England. I was like, oh, he's like me and he's got employees and he can do these things. Like I now saw that it was possible for myself because I saw in someone else who I related to had it. And I think that's also really important to be able to see, like, to not be going through this by yourself, because you have to be able to see in someone else what's possible for you. It's the 4-minute mile. Once what's his name ran the 4-minute mile, then a whole bunch of other people were able to do it because it's the belief part rather than the physical capability.
100%. As we close things out, I got some rapid fire questions for you, just real quick to help out the listeners here. What would you say is one daily habit that's made a big difference for you in terms of mental health and just mindset?
That's a good one. I want to say working out, but I don't do it daily. It's like, and sometimes working out isn't as clearing. I think that the daily habit that
could be semi-daily, it's okay.
Yeah. But I mean, it's really like the thing that clears me out when I need to get a clear out, getting up from my current location and going and resetting by getting outside, whether it's walk around the block or just moving. And I think it's more of it's the thing, like working out in the last year, it doesn't really clear my head out like it used to because I get too into it. But if I can change locations and change the scenery, the air, the way it smells, that's the thing that I found is more important than anything else right now.
Awesome, dude. Love it.
Yeah.
What's been a book or a resource that you've found that's really helpful in terms of mindset in business or mental resilience, anything like that, or leadership, either one?
It goes in 2019, 2020. I read a handful of the Navy SEAL memoirs and books, and just, like it's not about mindset, but it's like the offshoot of this. And I think, like the Lone Survivor and the one by Jason Redman, can't remember the name of them. I got a couple concussions last year, so the names, but it's Jason Redman, Lone Survivor by Marcus Luttrell, and even Transformed by Remy Adelecki. It's like just seeing like that Navy SEAL and some of the stuff we did, like with Operation Blacksite, the Navy SEALs that we got to hang out with and meet, they are not the peak like athletic performers. They aren't the superstars. They're the people that never say quit. I mean, yes, you have to be physically capable, but they never say quit. And I was like, just seeing that is just one of these other things like, I'm not them, but I can take a piece of that, never quit.
The only way to lose is if you quit.
Yeah.
As long as you don't quit, you never lose because you just keep playing.
Right.
I love it. Right. Hormozi's example of it's not a finite game. It's an infinite game. The object of the game is to keep playing the game.
Right. In high school, I was hoping that my baseball coach would put me in and play. I never got to play. I never got a letter. And I was like, why didn't you get a letter? And he's like, well, you didn't play. I'm like, well, we lost every game by the 5th inning because we were down by 10 runs. And he's like, well, so I never got to play. So I quit that. But I get to play a different game and I get to play every day. And you're right. It's like, but the thing is what people understand is it's not the same game. Business ownership is a very different game than we were taught to play being an employee or being in school. And we have to play by different rules. And rule number 1 is everyone gets to play. Rule number 2 is don't quit.
I was gonna say, rule number 1 is I get to put myself in. Like that's
right.
It's the same thing.
I put myself in the game. I decide when I play.
I played football in high school, but I was cut from basketball and lacrosse. I quit after that because I never got the chance to learn how to play it because I was never given the opportunity. I understand that of creating your own opportunities. Mm-hmm. Last thing in terms of rapid fire, what's one thing that you wish you knew about leadership from the start? Like what's one thing you wish you knew that you know now?
These are really good questions. One thing I wish I knew in the beginning, I really wish that, I think what I really wish I knew was that when you become a leader, you're not just going to hire people, you're going to have to fire them and let them go. You have to make tough decisions. And I think that those tough decisions, those tough moments were really hard for me because I didn't expect them. I was like, why didn't someone tell me I was going to have to also fire someone and have them cry in front of me for an hour?
Yeah.
And not understand why I let him go. I think that's the hardest thing. That was the hardest wake up. And I was like, I didn't join the club when I hired someone. I joined the club when I fired somebody. Right. Yep. And I wish I knew about how that was going to feel ahead of time. And I don't know if anyone can teach that, but it's like, hey, when you hire someone, it was like, hey, hire slow, fire fast. I'm like, yeah, they can't really fire fast. You can make the decision fast, but the process of letting someone know that you no longer need them when you've developed a relationship with them, even if it's a work relationship, is really, really difficult. And I think I wish I knew that I was going to have to make difficult decisions in isolation.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I remember my first one, I hated it.
Yeah. It was horrible. Yeah. The first person I let go, it wasn't the same. And she was like, she didn't show up for a meeting and she had been in twice. And I was like, yeah, this isn't going to be a good fit. And then she started blaming me. That wasn't the same as having someone who had been with me for a year and a half, and then another person who had been with me for 4 years, and sitting down with them and telling them they were no longer needed.
That's rough for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, dude, this has been awesome. And for the listeners that have been tuning into this, I hope you picked up on some of the big takeaways that Aaron talked about today, specifically about awareness and like how you can become more aware of yourself to become more aware of others. And outside of that, just everything falling back to you. Like whether you're leadership in business, leadership in family, with your teams, like ultimately it starts at the top and trickles down. So it's going to come back to you. And if you learn about yourself and take care of yourself, you're going to have a huge opportunity to ascend both in your own personal development, professional development, and in your relationships. So what I would challenge you to do this week is to take some time, get a journal, and actually make some notes and write down what are some of the things you've become aware of about yourself. Like try to learn about you. And one of the ways that I've done this for myself is just to write how the day before went. Like, how did it go the day before? Like, yesterday was great. Here's what happened. Because you're going to see the words that you write are going to tell you a lot about how you think of your days or how you think of yourself. So it's been a pleasure to have you on, Aaron. Where can everyone find you? Like, where can they find you online, learn more about physical therapy, learn more about Cash PT, all that stuff?
Ryan, thanks again for having me on the show. This was great. Like I said, great questions, hard questions, like need a lot of thought. If you want to find me or connect with me online, best place is Instagram. It's Aaron LeBauer. It's Aaron, L-E, and B as in boy, A-U-E-R. You can Google me. You'll find me there as well. But Instagram is one of the best places, or aaronlebauer.com.
Thank you again. And for everyone listening, look out for the next episode of The Lighthouse.
Hey, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to the show. And if you are a small business owner and you are ready to unlock your true leadership potential, scale your profits, and build a business that actually thrives without you, here are 3 ways that I can help. Number 1, take the What Type of Leader Are You quiz. I'll leave it in the show notes. It's going to give you some great insights into the patterns that are basically running your leadership style and negatively impacting you and your team. The second way is the Lighthouse Leader Program. This is a intensive program for you to develop your leadership skills, remove the mental blocks that have been holding you back, and take you and your business to the next level. If you want to learn more about it, find me on Instagram, Ryan.Lighthouse. Shoot me a DM that says Lighthouse Leader and we can talk details. And finally, the last way would be to work with me privately. I do mentor small business owners and their teams to grow their business and remove the owner from the day-to-day operations. And if you want to learn how to do that, same thing. Go on Instagram, find me Ryan.Lighthouse, send me a DM that says mentorship. We can talk about the details of one-on-one mentorship and how I can come in and help work with you and your team. But thank you again for listening to this show, and stay tuned for next episode.